What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another FPL video on Fantasy Football Scout. This is Transfer Watch, where we're going to talk about some of the most transfer players in, some of the most transfer players out. Should you be buying, selling, keeping, holding, avoiding, etc.? I'll give you my opinion. Obviously, if you agree, disagree, you can leave a comment below and let me know. And obviously, give the video a like and hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying it as well. We'll start off with Mo Salah, right? So he's come off the bench. 33 minutes against Crystal Palace. So first of all, we hear rumours that he's going to be benched. Few people panic, myself included. I got spooked enough to move the armband, luckily to Bruno Fernandes. Then he comes on for 33 minutes. He scores 2 goals, gets 1 assist, 16 points. Absolutely ridiculous, right? It's just it just sums him up really about how good he is. And now he hasn't blanked for his last 7 matches. 68 points in total, 9.7 points per match, right? The guy is incredible. I think you already know that. But with these transfers in, 199,000 already, it also coincides with having a really good fixture run and also a double game week in game week 19. And a lot of the time through these videos now, from here to kind of game week 18, 19, when we talk about player with good fixtures, you're obviously going to have to think of your own chip strategy, right? Because he does blank in game week 18, so you've got to consider that. Doesn't mean you should avoid him for the next 3 matches either, but that is something that each person will have to kind of weigh up themselves. But the fixtures that are coming up: West Brom at home, Newcastle away, Southampton away, then it's the blank, then it's Man United and Burnley at home in game week 19. Now, for me, he's probably the standout captaincy option this week against West Brom. I know there's all this talk about the big Sam effect. Sam Allardyce is going to come in and make West Brom this kind of defensive powerhouse. But we saw against Aston Villa last night, didn't happen, 3 goals. It is probably worth saying that he's obviously not been at the club that long. He's only had a certain amount of time to get his methods and ways into the team. But even if he did do that, even if he had another couple of weeks, he's about to play Liverpool, right? And they are the best team in the league as it stands. And so there's going to be a good few goals in this one. So for me, West Brom at home, he is the standout captain. And then you've got Newcastle away. So that's something to consider as well. Now, in game week 16, Spurs play Fulham, and I think a lot of people will be looking to captain Kane or Son in that week, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? Fulham at home, it's been a good fixture for a lot of the time this season. Obviously, Spurs have been good options for captaincy, but I wouldn't overlook Salah versus Newcastle either. So even if for some reason you wanted to go without him for West Brom, he's also a really good captaincy option against Newcastle as well. So potentially you could just captain him for the next 2 fixtures. And then it's Southampton away. And look, Southampton have done okay at times this season, but we saw Man United put 3 past them. Man City only won, although De Bruyne did have a really good chance. We're going to talk about him a bit later. So it could have been more there. And so I think Liverpool will get some joy at Southampton. Then obviously it's the double game week. And if you're playing triple captain in that week, he's arguably the standout option. I do think in this double game week, there's not really a perfect storm. I think, like, for example, West Ham have got the fixtures, but is anyone going to triple captain Bowen or Souček? Probably not. Antonio would definitely be up there if he could stay fit, but it's probably not going to happen. And even if he was back, would you trust him for 2 games? Then you've got Chelsea players, but they're playing, I think, Fulham and Leicester, so it's not ideal. And then Salah's got Man United and Burnley. Now, that Man United game could be one of those that's tight, like we've seen that before. If he can nick a goal in that Man United game, then I'd feel a lot more confident. But either way, he's a really good option that week, and I'm sure he's going to be probably one of the top captain players that week. So this seems obvious to me, like it has been all season. I don't see why most people would not have Mo Salah for most of the time. And then there's been a lot of premium players doing well recently: De Bruyne, Fernandes, Son and Kane, etc. But for me, Salah is still the top. He has really good fixtures over the next 3, a really good double game week. He's absolutely a buy. If you don't have him for West Brom at home, you're going to need a big sofa. So Kevin De Bruyne about to play Newcastle at home, and he's been transferred out so far by over 77,000 managers. And I'm sure that number's going to increase, right? And I think lots of the frustration has come for him from his points that he's got on versus West Brom and Southampton, right? And a lot of your thought process around De Bruyne probably depends on when you got him in. So, for example, if you bought him in game week 10 for Burnley, he's only blanked since then against Man United, which, like, I know some people think that's a good fixture and players like De Bruyne will always do well, which is fair enough, right? Him, Salah, etc. in big games, of course, they can score points, but I usually go into games like against Man United or against Chelsea or against City, whoever it might be, with the expectation that my player's going to get no points, and if they get anything, that's a bonus. So for him to blank, for me, wasn't really a massive concern. Outside of that, and obviously it does depend whether you count 4 points as a return against West Brom, but since Burnley, right, you take the Man United game out, the other games, Burnley, Fulham, West Brom, Southampton, he scored 33 points. That's 8.25 points per game. Well, we just said that Salah's on 9.7. De Bruyne, okay, he's a similar price, but 8.25 is pretty decent as well. He's 11.8 million. If he could keep doing that for the rest of the season, we'd be more than happy. Obviously, if you got him in against West Brom in Southampton, it's only 9 points, 4.5 points per match. And yes, that doesn't feel quite as good. But I think if you did bring him against West Brom, you've got to kind of just write off the fact that he's only got 9 points. Right, still 2 returns, but granted, 9 points is not great, especially if you captain him in that West Brom game. But those points have happened now. You can't go back in time and change that. What you got to be asking yourself is Newcastle at home a good fixture? And I think it is, right? So they're the ninth worst team for expected goals conceded over the last 4, which isn't bad, I guess. It's middle of the table, but they're about to play Man City. And it's one of those games where Newcastle will probably try and sit deep. And maybe Man City will have trouble unlocking them. If they can get an early goal, that could be one of those games where floodgates just open. I expect Mahrez to come back in and provide a little bit of a spark there, creativity-wise as well. And I'm sure they're going to be camped out outside the Newcastle box. So I think personally it's the wrong time to be selling Kevin De Bruyne. Even if you wanted to go to like a Spurs player, right, which is something I'll consider in Game Week 16, Spurs are about to play Wolves. We've just seen that, yes, Spurs have been good this season, but at times they're going to struggle. They did against Leicester. They didn't really create too many chances. I think Kane and Son had 2 shots in the box between them. Granted, one of Son's shots probably would have gone in most other matches. A really good save from Schmeichel. But they did struggle against Leicester, and I don't think Wolves is going to be that much easier, really. So for me, Kevin De Bruyne against Newcastle is better than Son or Kane versus Wolves. In Game Week 16, maybe you make that decision, though, because Son is going to play Fulham and then Leeds, and Leeds in particular looks like a really good game for Son. So I'm not saying that De Bruyne has to stay in our teams, for the rest of the season or even for the next few game weeks, but it's Everton and Chelsea in 16-17. For me, that's a good time to swap. But he does play in blank Game Week 18, so that's worth considering. And the fixtures from 18 to kind of 22 are really, really good. So if you haven't completely written off City yet and written off De Bruyne, I do think he's a good hold. I will say, last couple of games, only 2 shots in the box. Although against Southampton, I don't know how he didn't score. It was like a really tired shot. It wasn't like 6-yard area, but it was in the box, and it's the kind of shot that you would expect De Bruyne just to go around and keep it nice and easy, but it just didn't happen. And he did create 9 chances in that time as well. So he has been creating a lot. And like a lot of us have already said on videos and podcasts and stuff, against West Brom, at the end, those 2 assists for Sterling and Gundogan, again, that could have been 2 goals on another day, and he gets 2 assists potentially. Even if the first one goes in and you don't get the second one, it's still an assist. It's still a 7 or 8 point or whatever it might have been. And then we're probably not feeling quite as bad about him. So I see why people are kind of frustrated. I think his stats are still looking quite good over the last 4 matches you can see on screen. I think Newcastle at home is a really good fixture, and if City can get an early goal, then it could be a big one. I think De Bruyne is still on penalties. Yes, he hasn't scored from open play so far this season, but I don't think that's necessarily going to continue for the rest of the season. And like I said, Newcastle, good fixture. Maybe then it's time to consider moving him on for a Spurs player. So Jamie Vardy already been transferred out by 60,000 managers, and that might continue because he is flagged. But he scored 35 points over the last 4 game weeks. The guy has been on a roll. Clearly, it's frustrating if you went from Vardy to Kane like a lot of people did. Obviously, Kane with a blank, but Vardy himself, really good game again. And I would say there is an argument for keeping him, right? I'm not saying you have to, of course. That's always up to you. But I think there is an argument to keep him. So one of the reasons he's probably been transferred out quite a bit is because he came off with a knock. It's about 5 minutes to go. But he was interviewed after the game. He joked around about saying that he's just getting old now, so these things are going to happen, basically. But then he went on to say it was a tweak. Came off as a precaution, and it should be absolutely fine. Now, we have seen times in the past where a player kind of gives their own self-diagnosis that they're fine, and then later on, obviously the doctor or whatever looks at them, maybe they have a scan or whatever it was, and then they're out for a bit longer. So we will have to wait for news, but I do think it's a bit early to be transferring them out. So looking at the fixtures, obviously Man United at home, again, like I've just said for Kevin De Bruyne, for me, if I own Vardy, I will go into that Man United match expecting a blank. If he gets a goal, a penalty, an assist, whatever it is, that would be a bonus. So maybe the next week's not ideal. And again, even though I've said maybe keep De Bruyne and not get Son for Wolves, I do think Kane against Wolves is probably better than Vardy against Man United, just about, but I don't think there's much in it. And then it's Crystal Palace. They've just been smashed by Liverpool. I think defensively they had looked before Liverpool that it were kind of getting a little bit better, but over the season they've not been good at all. I think they've only kept 1 clean sheet. So that's a good game for Vardy. Then they've got Newcastle, I've talked a lot about already for Salah and De Bruyne, so I won't talk about them again. Then obviously he blanks, so again, chip strategy comes into it. And then game week 19, it's a double of Southampton and Chelsea. So I don't think that's the easiest double, but Jamie Vardy is someone that we know can score against anyone. If he could get something against Chelsea, that would be a bonus. Then you've got Southampton as well. I don't necessarily think I would be looking to captain him in that week, not necessarily, but you could do, I suppose. So I don't think he necessarily warrants a transfer out. And again, it's all going to depend on who you want to bring in, chip strategy and stuff like that. But after Man United, Palace, then Newcastle, and then a double game week in game week 19 looks pretty good. And he's got some quite nice fixtures afterwards as well. So if you're in a position where you didn't want to make a transfer, you could arguably keep him. You can go up to Kane. You can use 2 transfers and get back to De Bruyne, whoever it might be in midfield. He gives you a lot of versatility. So I don't think this is a bad sell, right? I don't think people are making a mistake necessarily selling him, but I do think there's a lot of reasons to keep him, basically. So let me know in the comments below what you think of these 3 players. I mean, Salah to me just seems like an absolute no-brainer. I think De Bruyne and Vardy are probably a little bit more up for discussion. So leave me a comment below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already. We'll be back tomorrow with Captaincy and Scoutcast and content all the way up until Christmas and after Christmas as well. So hit that subscribe button, give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you again soon.